Hello again, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, night, whatever time it is that you happen to be listening to this. Welcome back for another episode of Kanan's Cadence, the show where I talk about my interests, hobbies, and experiences at my own pace with my own rhythm. Fast approaching the holiday season at this point, which is pretty crazy. Time of recording, we're a week away from Thanksgiving, which I keep having to remind myself. I've lost track of time at this point, like completely lost track of time. I genuinely thought that we were still early November until maybe 2 hours ago. I didn't realize how late we are into the season at this point, in spite of how many people are trying to get me to start listening to Christmas music already. Nope, I will wait one more week. I am one of those people. I prefer to wait until the day of Thanksgiving, until after the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That's the earliest time that I will allow myself to actually put on like any type of Christmas music or a Christmas playlist, because Santa ushers in the holiday season at the end of the parade, and how can I argue with that? It's not at the end of Halloween for me. It is not the middle of November for me. It has to be no sooner than the end of that parade on Thanksgiving Day. So we're getting there, just one more week. Um, so yeah, anyway, what's going on today? What am I going to be talking about? So I was thinking just earlier as I'm trying to brainstorm ideas to come up with. Actually, let me go into that really quick. Sometimes my ideas will come to me pretty quickly, a couple days before I record, and other times I don't end up thinking of something until I actually hit record on the mic, and I kind of just talk and see what it ends up, how it actually ends up going. So earlier this morning, I was just like, I don't really have anything that I'm like set on talking about today, but I had a couple of ideas. And then it kind of hit me. I haven't spoken, it's been a few weeks since I've spoken about anything having to do with music, how music has impacted my life and has been important to me. First couple of times that I spoke about it, I think it was my second and maybe my fourth episode. I spoke about just my musical upbringing through from elementary school through roughly to the end of college or so. Like just keeping it brief though. I didn't go into any real specifics like all that much. But what I wanted to talk about today, music wise, is really just about my experiences with the saxophone in general. That being my primary instrument, has been since I was 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old, something like that. It's approaching 20 years at this point, and wow, saying it out loud still never gets any less strange. Hearing myself say it, feeling myself say it, 20 years. That's pretty freaking crazy as I think about it. But yeah, that being the case and just the amount of things that I've done, I kind of wanted to just go through a couple of things with just my own experiences with this instrument in particular, not kind of just meandering through school. I do have to cover a couple of things having to do with those times in my life, of course, but I really want to focus on like the saxophone itself and like why it has become like so significant to me, especially because if I remember saying in my first music related episode that I did, the saxophone was not my first choice for an instrument. It wouldn't have been. I wanted to play the trumpet initially, really just because I was more familiar with it as an instrument, what it sounded like, and I would see more people with it when I was a kid. So that was my first pick, and I was given the saxophone instead. Um, that disappointment that I had as a small child didn't last too long. After a while, I was kind of just like, oh, I mean, I'm playing an instrument one way or another, and it's fun, so I'm not gonna get too upset that I didn't get stuck with a trumpet. At me nowadays, I'm like, be grateful to little me, because honestly, trumpet, I give a lot of credit to trumpet players, because that instrument, it feels like, it seems at the very least to me that it would really take a toll on the face in a way that the saxophone doesn't exactly. Like instruments like sax and clarinet, which I play, the ones that have the types of mouthpieces that those use versus the mouthpieces on a trumpet or a trombone, any brass instrument. So a lot of credit to brass players, because I couldn't do that, and I'm glad that I got the saxophone instead. So, again, not to go too much into retread territory, not quite yet. But yeah, so I started playing the saxophone in fourth grade. Didn't really start taking it seriously, I want to say, until I was into high school. All throughout middle school, I had some fun playing it, and it was really just because I was playing in bands. I got to be with my friends and stuff in school. Got to do a couple of cool things here and there. But I didn't know much about the instrument. I never studied privately, not as a kid anyway. I wasn't until I was close to 20 years old that I started studying privately with anyone. So a lot of it was just what I would do at home. So I remember being at home and like having my saxophone. I started out on the alto saxophone the first couple of years that I was playing, and having it at home and just setting it up, sitting on the floor of my bedroom, not even in a chair. I would just set it up and sit on the floor, just blow some notes, thinking that I sound awesome. And my family, my parents maybe were one thing, but my older siblings, like they did not hesitate to let me know, oh wow, that doesn't sound good. Just like poking fun where they could. And again, I can't blame them as we were kids, but I it never it never went any more just beyond like siblingly sparring, from what I understand. Where it could kind of cut a couple times. I remember there were certain times that like if say my older brother or if my sister had friends over and I happened to be practicing, like their friends would kind of make jabs too, and like it was more of like a oh, your little brother, wow, he doesn't sound all that great and stuff like that. But like those types of comments, just given the type of personality that I have, like those ones did kind of stick a little bit. Not so much to make me like actually upset or anything like that, but it made me more choosy with when I would actually set up my sax and try to do any type of playing. Because of course, like starting out, like I didn't want to do a whole lot. I was just like, okay, well, I'm being given a practice log. I'm told 20 minutes every day, Monday through Friday. I wanted to do other things with my time, especially because I didn't know how far I'd be taking this. So I would just try to do the bare minimum, play a couple notes like here and there, maybe like something from a song that I had, but that was really it. Once I got into middle school, that's when I was given the option to switch from alto sax to tenor sax. Just happened to come up. I remember that there was a kid when I was in fifth grade who just randomly was put onto the tenor sax, and my first thought, and I think I might have said this before, my first thought was like, what, you think you're better than us? Something like that. I'm just like, wow, this kid, he suddenly has the saxophone that's bigger, and everyone's like looking at him while he's playing it, just like, oh wow, sounds so much different than mine. That's so cool. And like, just again, like some sort of jealousy just took over, where I was like, wow, I mean, I want to be able to do that. And before I was able to switch over to a tenor sax myself, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, like he actually was put onto the baritone sax, the bari sax, and I was like, wow, okay, you also think that you're better than us, but you're no, you're my friend, so I'll let it slide. I'll give you this one, more or less that sort of thing. Um, and again, I didn't have any type of grasp on like, okay, well, we need to have some sort of coverage depending on the music that we're playing. Like, we got to have at least one person on this, one person on this. I saw these two playing different saxophones, and I was immediately like, well, I want to play a different saxophone. And that just didn't happen when I was in fifth grade. I remember asking my teacher, and just it never happened. Like, she was like, well, we don't need another tenor saxophone. Once I got into middle school, that's when I asked the question again to my new teacher. I figured I was going to be kind of sly, just like, all right, well, she doesn't know that I was told, hey, we don't need any tenor saxophones. So let me see what let me see what she thinks. And she just gave me one to try, and that's when I started to really enjoy playing. I love my alto saxophone, yes, but like I ever since I started playing tenor, I've always considered myself more of a tenor sax player. Just the lower tone that it has, the slightly larger body, which I think is even now, especially nowadays, it's better suited for just my physique in general. I can play alto sax, but like I still think that it looks comically small when I'm holding it. Not gonna lie. So tenor was immediately more my speed, and that's kind of just what I stuck with. And that continued. I didn't end up picking up another alto sax until I was into my third year of college. It wasn't until I started studying at Crane that I had to switch back over to alto sax, just given the type of music that I would play. But getting ahead of myself a little bit. So, in terms of styles of music and whatever, when it comes to saxophone, I think that most people are going to associate the saxophone with probably jazz is going to be the first one, and then you'll have like funk music, you'll have like sax sometimes in like rock music, and the people aren't, at the very least, it seems this way to me. It doesn't seem like classical saxophone is usually one of the first places that any just everyday person is going to think when it comes to again, like what they expect to hear from a saxophone or a saxophonist, depending. Um, and I kind of agree. Like I was always that sort of person too, where it's like I would picture, if I'm thinking of classical music, my first thought is usually going to be something more like a violin or a flute or a piano or something like that. And especially when I was a kid, I never really figured. I figured when I got a saxophone, I always heard my dad like listening to smooth jazz, where there was like Paul Hardcastle or something like that when I was growing up. So I always kind of anticipated that sort of sound. And when I started playing the sax in school, I expected immediately to be doing jazz type music. So being in like concert bands and wind bands in general, I was always like, okay, well, this isn't the type of music that I expect to play. And it definitely wasn't the type of music that anyone around me, like in my family or family friends, something like that, like they would expect that I was going to be immediately like the obvious ones are usually going to be like Careless Whisper, um, Baker Street, sometimes even Yakety Sax. Um, I can play those, but I choose not to play those. I don't like memeing when it comes to music. Usually not memeing in general, but especially if someone's just like, "Oh, you play the sax? Bust out Careless Whisper." I'm just like, I'll do it if I really feel like it, and that's really, really rare. Um, but anyway, so when I was in seventh grade, that was when I got the first opportunity to actually play any type of jazz music, and like that's when I started to be like, okay, well, yeah, I can have like a lot of fun with this. But the ironic thing, just to cut ahead a little bit, is that jazz, especially nowadays, is one of my, I usually going to say one of my weaker suits when it comes to just my playing capabilities. I listen to it a ton. I've played it a ton. I've played lead alto. I played tenor one. I played tenor two. A bunch of times. I've done a lot of jazz over the years, and yet I still, to this day, feel like it's not one of my strongest suits. I can play in the style just fine, but specifically, I guess it would come to like improv, like how to like improvise and understanding the chord structures and like what I'm actually doing with my improv, like where I'm going with it, not being too um, not playing too many notes, I guess is the way to put it. I always end up thinking really, really hard, and I think that my upbringing, learning how to read music and playing mainly in concert bands initially, is part of what contributed to that struggle. Like I've always been the type of person where I'm like, if I have like a structure, an outline, some sort of guide, I'm going to excel really, really well. But I get in my own way when it comes to that sort of thing because I like also being creative, being unique, and coming up with my own like solos or writing my own stuff, whatever it is. Like that's where the creativity would flow instead of just me playing something that someone else wrote. I get to play what it is that I'm coming up with, and yet that's where my struggle lies and always has when it comes to jazz. So I've done a lot of stuff to try and figure out how to like improve upon that. I've taken like a handful of jazz lessons a few years ago. I was doing that sort of thing. I've done a lot of reading up on that type of stuff. I've done a lot of listening, and obviously I've done a lot of playing. And I don't know, some of the best advice that I've ever gotten when it comes to working on jazz music or jazz improv is just keep listening and just do it. That's really like that was like the best advice that I had gotten. And I got that from a bunch of people because I would be like, "Oh, I don't really know how to improvise. I don't know when I should play this. I don't know how I should do this and stuff like that." They're like, "The fact that you're thinking so hard about it is what's causing you to run into so many problems." And I believe them. I agree with that. I there's definitely still a lot of work that can be put into it and should be put into it. But I also know that part of why I still struggle with it is just because I'm inconsistent with it too. Um, I've gotten over the last couple years to play a few different gigs where I get to do some improv. I did one just recently. I played in like a rock show at like an ale house, and that was really, really cool. Got to mess around. Ironically, Baker Street, one of those songs that I've always gotten like, hey, people want me to hear me do it. Um, I finally got to do that one live, and apparently it was a huge crowd pleaser. So that was great, and I got to improvise a little bit on that. I played, like I said, I played lead alto in a jazz ensemble twice last year. That was fun. It's the first time that I've actually gotten to do that in quite some time, and I got to do it a couple times and get paid for it too, and that was a nice added bonus there. So again, like I'm getting to do it. It's just one of the other things I got to do is just either play more at home or just get together with friends and play more with them too. Like just go and jam. Like that's a lot of the time how I'm going to figure out. And some of my best improv solos have come when I'm just playing alongside a friend and we're just bouncing stuff off of each other. A great friend of mine, we go way back, stand partners throughout middle school and high school on tenor sax. Kyle, you know who you are. We called ourselves the Tantalizing Tenors throughout high school, and we still stand by that name. Again, we don't get to play together a whole lot, But for the first time earlier this year, back in March, we did get to like just jam together and bounce some ideas off of each other solo wise. And apparently, people really did take to the way that we played together. So that was cool. And those are some of my best times when I get to just play with a friend and just not really have a care in the world. So I'll get more into jazz. Like I'll do more with it when I'm able to, of course. That's only one side of playing. And again, like I said, that's a side that I usually have. I don't want to say quote unquote more fun with, but I can usually feel more creative with, and that I enjoy. But I also spent obviously a lot of time, more time with this classical side of music, the classical side of the saxophone, which I didn't even really know existed until maybe I was in high school. It took some time before I even started to think like that. Mentioned before that I've done NISMA. I did that a couple times, and it was my score after doing a level 6. That's what gave me the push to kind of study music because I wanted to get better. I saw my own potential at that point, and I was like, okay, well, others are seeing it too. They're saying this to me. Maybe I really should consider it more than I had in the past. So I decided, yeah, let me take this into college, see where I can take myself. I said earlier that that's when I started actually taking private lessons. It was my second semester of my freshman year in college. That was the first time I got to work with a teacher. Mentioned him before, Jeff Landman. Like he was the first guy that I worked with, and at the same school, I got to work with another guy named Justin Marks. Um, the two of them like gave me so many pointers that really I felt did like increase my abilities like substantially in such a short stretch of time. And it felt good. It felt good, but I still felt kind of limited because the music that we were working on when I was early in college, when I was at community college, that music was all in the vein of like, okay, well, this is a transcription for tenor sax from flutes, or like this is you're going to do this one movement of this piece this semester, you're going to do the other movement of this piece next semester, and you're going to do the last movement in your final semester for your first recital. And it was as I was doing that, I was like, okay, well, I'm playing the same piece, just across a few semesters, and then I'm playing a transcription. I'm playing these etudes that weren't written for tenor sax. There's not a lot of tenor sax classical music out there, is there? And yeah, pretty much. At the very least, not in comparison to alto sax. Nothing that's as widespread. So once I transferred from community college to SUNY Potsdam, and I'm in Crane at this point. Now I'm working with Casey Grev, and he was the one who had said, "Yeah, you're going to need an alto saxophone if you're going to be studying here, because there's not nearly enough tenor sax music to carry you through your first few semesters here. There are alto sax pieces that are essential for the saxophone, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to play them is on the alto." So the school ends up getting me a brand new alto saxophone, um, it's a Yamaha EX2, is the saxophone that they got me, and I love it. I loved it then, and I once I graduated, I ended up purchasing it from the school after its value came down a little bit. $4,000 its original value, somewhere around there, and I after using it for a couple of years was able to buy it for about 2,800, and that was fantastic. And that's the saxophone that I still use. I was just having a conversation a few days ago. Someone was asking me like, "Oh, how many alto saxes do you have? Do you plan on getting another one?" I'm like, I don't really plan to get another one anytime soon, just because I think that this one is going to be able to carry me for a while. Like, I'm not doing anything like too crazy playing wise on alto right now. I really just use it for private lessons. Eventually, but that'll have to wait until later. My main focus after I got my alto though and started learning this music, I was like, when can I switch back over to tenor sax? I really want to be able to play another, like, I want to be able to play on a brand new tenor sax. So the first tenor sax that I had gotten was when I was a senior in high school. It was a chrome, an Alora saxophone that really wasn't all that good, but it looked nice. So I decided to buy it anyway. It was maybe $1,000. My first major purchase after starting to work and all that type of stuff. I named that saxophone Stella, and my goodness, if you have any type of recollection of this name for my tenor sax and how it connected to me from the end of high school through to the point that I had swapped it with my current one, that means that you've known me for a long time. Is the thing. Like, I don't bring that one up a whole lot, but Stella, I still have that saxophone. Might even use a picture of it in the thumbnail for this episode or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that was my very first one. It played okay from what I needed it for. I thought that it was great, but it definitely wasn't a professional saxophone. So once I was away at school, I decided that I wanted to get another one. And I had to start planning for it and budgeting for it. Um, so it was my fourth total year at in college. The start of my second year at Crane, and I was going to be giving my first like recital. Like I gave like a small one, like a 15-minute recital before graduating at Suffolk, and that was fun. But like it didn't like in comparison to the other performances that I've done, that one was really like the pilot episode recital, I want to call it. The real one, the first proper episode was it's like I'm using the term episode. I guess I'm just sticking with that. Yes, my half-hour recital that I gave my second year at Crane, that was the first proper recital that I did. And oh my gosh, what a time, what a time. So anyway, before I get into that, I decided over the summer before the start of the semester, since I knew that I had a new or I knew I had a recital coming up, I knew that I wanted to play something on tenor sax because again, like that for me, I feel like defines my upbringing on the saxophone and like my current playing on the saxophone, all that type of stuff. I wanted a brand new one. I wanted a professional one. The one that I had from high school against Stella, she served her purposes. I still have her, but I needed one that would play better. So I decided to get um, one that was valued at about the same as my alto, about $4,000. This was the first like major purchase that I made, because this was all me at this point. No loan from the school or anything like that. It was something that I had to figure out how to finance from me, and I felt great about it. So it's a Yamaha, it's a 62, my tenor sax, and I cherish this horn. Like I refuse to let any harm come to it. I try to keep it in pristine condition. I do have to get it serviced. It's been a handful of years since I've had like a proper servicing, but other than that, like it plays beautifully, and I like I said, I will not let any harm come to it. And for me, it provides that like the saxophone plus then my setup, my mouthpiece, my reed, that provides me with what I've considered the classical tone that I've always wanted to have, even from when I started playing back in sixth grade on tenor sax. So again, like I love it and I will stick with it. So this saxophone I used for my half-hour recital. That was the first time that I gave a performance on it, and that I felt like just nothing but connection between me and that particular horn. Like this is one that I'm probably not going to play on for my entire career as a professional saxophonist, but like it's going to stick with me for a long time. And even after I've moved on to another horn or something like that, if and when that happens, this one's not going anywhere. I'm not selling it, not getting rid of it. This one is mine, and it just has that sentimental attachment to me at this point. Um, so yeah, moving on from that, just a couple other things that I want to go into before wrapping up. So on the actual topic of those recitals, so um, my first recital, I remember I did two pieces on alto sax. One was solo. One was a duet with my old friend Bella. It was a saxophone and clarinet duet. And then I did my tenor sax piece. That duet, I remember, I just reached for the stars trying to find some sort of saxophone and clarinet duet that I figured would be fun and easy enough to put together in just a couple of months. And I just wanted to work with my friend. That's what it boiled down to. I remember that she wasn't really crazy about that piece, and she made sure to let me know of that. And I was like, okay, I know, but you're still playing it. You still agree. You agree. This is what we're doing. And we ended up having fun with it. But she did tell me after we performed it, she was like, I'm never ever touching that piece again. I'm happy that I was able to help you for your recital. I'm never playing that piece again. And I respected it. I respect it to this day. Hope she's doing well. Um, for my senior recital, that's where it got a little complicated because my when I was giving my senior recital, that was right when the COVID pandemic had started, and so I had to perform to an audience of zero outside of people who were watching on a live stream, and I had to like really cram in any type of time, as anyone else did at that point. But really cram in time where I could work on it because again, like since it was an unconventional semester. It was my last semester in college for an undergraduate degree, at the very least, and I wanted to play with my friends before I graduated. it made it really, really complicated because I had to find time to work with an accompanist on 2 different pieces that I was playing, and then 3 separate people on 3 different duets that I was doing. So that's what made it really, really hard. One thing that was lucky, one of my duet mates, I want to say, for my senior recital, my friend Ashley, we were roommates at that time, so it was easy enough for us to work on a duet because we didn't have to go anywhere to do that. That made it great, and I had fun. That was another piece where I had to like, kind of like dig just to find a duet for alto saxophone and tenor trombone, like a really strange combination. I happened to find one that I thought sounded good enough, and I was less concerned about the music itself, like what the music meant to me, as much as I was about just playing with people who were important to me. Like that was kind of the basis of my recital. So there was that piece that I did with her. I did a duet that was written by another peer from Crane, Sam Taylor, and I did that with my friend Ethan. This was just alto sax and tenor sax. I got to do tenor sax for that one, keep that with me for my senior recital, and that was fun to put together. Not an easy piece at all, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun to actually do. And then the last duet that I did, this one was the one that I really, really wanted to play. Even beyond just doing it to play with a friend, this was one piece that I did want to do. The piece is called "Staying the Night." It's by a composer named David Biedenbender, and I got to do that with my good friend Shayna, who we weren't roommates at the time, but we were the year before this. So we made it work. Alto sax, soprano sax for that duet, and that one, as I listen back to professional recordings of that piece nowadays, and I think of me nowadays where I don't get to do a whole lot on sax. I'm like, wow, I was able to play that 5 years ago, huh? That's wild. I must have been really, really good. Um, that skill has got to still be in me somewhere. I just haven't gotten a lot of time to practice lately. So all of those, and again, shout out to all 4, I want to say, of those friends, including Bella from my half-hour recital. All 4 of those friends for just the time that they had spent with me working on those pieces. Um, Actual quality of the pieces sometimes notwithstanding, again, like that is debatable, but the actual experiences of playing them was a lot of fun. And then that leaves the last 2 pieces, and this is the last thing that I'll talk about. The last 2 pieces I did, the 2 solo ones that I did on my recital. Um, I wanted to play with the accompanist Yujung Kim that I had worked with throughout my time at Crane, for every other semester prior to that. Unfortunately, she had, because of just circumstances I won't go into, she did end up leaving the school midway through that last semester of mine, so I wasn't able to work with her for that particular recital. She was the last person that I really, really wanted to play with for my senior recital because, again, like I want to play with people who were really important to me, and she and I, like, we worked together so much throughout my time there that, like, I really did want to make sure that we had that time. And again, like, I'm really appreciative of her one way or another. And it's a shame, even 5 years later, that I didn't get to play with her for my senior recital. But one way or another, like, I still give her that type of credit because she's a fantastic pianist. And again, like, we had a good dynamic working together and such. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, how do I wrap this thing up? So as much as I'm talking about the saxophone, and then as I also realize that I have or had at the very least, an active music profile that I was uploading to on Instagram years ago when I was in college. The idea, after I thought about recording and talking about my saxophone experiences today, the idea kind of struck me that I'm possibly interested in reviving that profile. It's still there. It's still active. Again, like, not, or rather available is the thing I should say, not active. I haven't posted there since I was in college years ago. But I have a handful of videos of myself just practicing and playing stuff posted to that page. Kanan Nelson Sax, I think I had called it or whatever. Again, like, it's a public profile. People have seen it. People have found it, thinking that was my main one way or another. But I'm thinking of, like, bringing that back. Give myself an excuse to play more and record myself more and put myself out there more. Same type of thing that I'm doing with this podcast. Just putting myself out there. I'm trying to get more comfortable with the idea of actually doing that. So probably going to aim to do that. Maybe not immediately, but maybe as we get into the new year, as that's rolling around. And that wouldn't just be for my sax videos. That would also be for flute, clarinet, maybe bass guitar, as I've been working on that. And maybe I just turn it into like a kind of like a creativity profile for myself. Maybe put some pictures that I take with my camera on there as well. But now I'm getting really ahead of myself. Those are ideas that can stay for another time. As for this, I'm gonna wrap up right here. A lot of rambling in this one, just about some musical stuff. Hope it was interesting enough for you guys to listen to. Appreciate it as always. Next time I record, it'll be on Thanksgiving, so I got some holiday stuff that I guess I'll have to talk about. But that's for next time. For right now, I will catch you guys in the next one. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Take care.